Thanks everyone for taking time to join my virtual presentation. My name is Kendall Bartsch. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the library technology company Third Iron. And I'm delighted to join the conference. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. But my presentation today is talking about the work that we are doing as a company in rethinking linking. And we think linking is really important because linking is really the essence of access. For libraries that collect a lot of electronic information, being able to find that information through searching and whatnot, of course, is very important. But connecting people out to the actual information that they're interested in reading is key to research. And we've sort of learned the last number of years that there are a number of improvements that can be applied to really improve the linking for libraries and ultimately then access for researchers, which can really improve workflow. And to do that, we've really rethought linking. Rather than sort of remaining attached to the traditional open URL-based link resolvers, we have established our own technology, one that brings together what we call article-level intelligence and an AI-based source selection system to provide the fastest, most reliable, and informed way to connect end users to content. The focus of the presentation today is talking through what we're doing, particularly with open access, and why improving linking to open access content is so important. So thanks again for joining the presentation here. As quick background, if you're not familiar, Third Iron is a company that works with over 1,500 libraries across 35 countries, including a number of universities in South Africa. We started off working initially with academic libraries, but soon found that a library really located anywhere, in a hospital, in a government research facility here in the United States, such as the Centers for Disease Control, NASA, as well as corporations, all have interest in ensuring that their end users have the best access to information possible and have all become our customers down through the years. As I mentioned, our focus as a company is really about what we call intelligent linking, where we're really uniting kind of two basic elements in order to provide the best access to full text. One of those elements, again, is what we call article-level intelligence, and I'll unpack that here in just a minute, as well as a expert AI algorithm that always selects the best source for the end user. And this is really just a reflection of the fact that we know today there are a number of places where an end user might be able to link to full text. It might be the publisher, it could be an aggregator, there might be kind of open web sources out there, institutional repositories, there could be self-archived copies of articles and whatnot. But being aware of all those different sources and then dynamically and in real time, being able to always select the best one for each article requires artificial intelligence to make sure that we're doing it accurately and reliably. But once we bring together that article-level intelligence and the AI-based source selection, again, we're always providing the fastest, most reliable way to connect people to full text. The technology that we do this with is what we call LibKey. And this is just a really quick overview of kind of a complicated technology, but it is important, I think, good to walk through as we talk about open access and what we're doing with that. In a lot of ways, Third Iron is a company that just manages a lot of data. And this, again, is article-level intelligence data, which just simply means that we know a lot of things about articles. We ingest article metadata from syndication services such as Crossref and PubMed and other international sources, which just allows us to have a very good view of what articles are being published across which scholarly journals from publishers around the world. For all the libraries that we work with, we keep track of their entitlements, meaning that we know which journals libraries subscribe to. We have very good understanding of open access availability, which articles are open access, and I'll talk more about that, of course, in this presentation. We know how libraries authenticate. We're keeping track of different article versions, whether it's the version of record or a non-version of record, what format of the article is available in. Is it PDF? Is it HTML? We have some checks that we do to ensure that access to the article is actually available in an aggregator. And we're keeping track of things like editorial status. Is the article retracted or not? We can then use all of this data then in order to analyze any type of linking request that comes in wherever a researcher might find an article citation, a database, a discovery layer, even on the open web. From that article that the end user is interested in linking to, based on the article metadata, we know which journal that article is published in. We can determine then whether the library provides subscribed access to it. We know whether the article is open access. If not, we know how to apply authentication. We have different checks to determine which versions are available to make sure that we're always linking to the version of record. We can show the end user in advance if the article is available in a PDF or HTML format. Like I mentioned, to have that check to ensure that the article is available on an aggregated platform like EBSCOhost before we actually attempt to link to it, and then can keep track of whether the article has retraction or whether there's an expression of concern or might be published in a problematic journal. Once we make all these determinations, which we do in milliseconds, we can then determine the best source for that article. Again, understanding that there might be an aggregated source or there might be the OA version available and whatnot, and using that expert algorithm in order to determine that provides always, again, the best path to full text for the end user. Just a quick overview. The main takeaway here is just sort of understanding that we're bringing together kind of two basic elements here in trying to analyze and determine best path to content. One is we want to know a lot of things about the article, and then we always want to be able to determine the best source for the end user. And that's very different today, of course, when we have link resolvers, which are just basically passing metadata between a source and a target, and there could be a bunch of fail points in that process. LibKey is a technology, as I'm saying here, that can be applied really anywhere. It can be integrated into discovery systems and databases with our browser extension. It can also link people to library content if they find it cited in places like Google or Wikipedia or PubMed or places like that. Now, when we were developing all this article level intelligence, again, we want to know things about the article. One of the things that we really understood as being important is being able to accurately understand whether or not an article is open access and then be able to reliably link out to it. In that quest to try to determine that, we looked at a number of different data sources out there and analyzed their processes and the data that they were outputting to see whether it was providing the type of awareness about open access availability that we could then incorporate into our systems in order, again, to provide that reliable linking out to full text content. And what we learned when we were sort of looking at different processes and different organizations that were looking to identify open access content is that they were using different methodologies. So for example, Unpaywall, when they look to identify open access content, uses a different methodology than Core, which is another organization identifying OA content might use. And so there were sort of just differences in approaches, which meant that there were differences in the type of content that they're identifying as open access. In some cases, there were OA articles that were being missed. They weren't being adequately tagged or identified as being open access. In some cases, the technology that they were using to harvest that OA content was harvesting the incorrect links. So you could click on one of the links and it would go to the wrong article. Some articles are being identified as open access that were not. And in some cases, the toggles to identify whether the article might be the version of record or a author manuscript were not very clear, meaning that end users could be linked to the non-version of record of the article, even though the VOR is available. Moreover, we noticed that some of these entities were not exactly organized in order to correct the links. And having reliable links, of course, is something which is very important for researchers, because when they go to the library and they do a search in a system and they click on a link, they expect it to work. So being able to correct the links if there's errors, we noted that there were variabilities and speed in correcting those errors. So we just noticed that in the last couple of years, even though there's been great work being done to identify OA content, the ability to do so was pretty varied across entities. So we really then set out on this mission then to establish what we call library-centric OA linking. So what we've done as an organization then is, again, look at a broad number of different sources out there that we're looking to identify OA content, blending these together, applying our own software development resources to them to really provide the best-in-class data set, which really helps identify accurately the available OA content published across lots of different journals out there. In addition, we're applying operational control, meaning that any type of errors we can proactively and reactively fix if we become aware of those. And we're just committed to staying current. There's a lot of changes going on within open access. Publishers every day are sort of transferring journals from a pure subscription status to a hybrid status. There might be articles that are available open access for a short period of time, et cetera. So being able to stay current with what's going on within open access also provides that good degree of scope, understanding what's OA, as well as having the reliability to that content. And we find that this is particularly important because of how dominant hybrid journals have become as the publication model across different publishers. And of course, a hybrid journal just simply means that it is a subscription journal, but there are some open access articles contained in each issue. But in order to access all the articles, you need to have a subscription to that title. So it's sort of this interesting disconnect today because, again, there's a lot of journals out there. Most of them are hybrid, and a lot of these journals are being indexed in widely used databases that a lot of libraries are subscribing to. So this is just an example there on the left of a source list from PsycInfo, the psychology database, where we looked at the first 15 or 20 journals in that source list to determine whether they were hybrid or not. And as you can see, they're illustrated in green. All but 5 of those journals in PsycInfo are hybrid. What that means then is that this database is indexing articles from journals that libraries may not subscribe to that are open access. So the question then becomes, if a database is indexing an article which is OA, does that mean that the end user who's searching that database will be able to get access to that article, even if the library doesn't subscribe to that journal? Again, if a database is indexing an article that's OA from a hybrid journal that the library doesn't subscribe to, does the end user get access to that article? That's an interesting question. And really, the shorter answer we find across most libraries is no. Because again, we have a lot of hybrid journals out there, which are publishing a lot of OA articles, which are then being indexed in these databases. But unless my library is subscribing to that particular hybrid journal, if I click on that article record and want to get access to that article, that request most likely is going to be passed to my link resolver. And the link resolver is going to check my library entitlements, my journal subscriptions, to see whether or not the library subscribes to that hybrid journal. If the answer comes back as no, then most likely that request is going to be passed to interlibrary loan, which means that I don't get access to the article, and unnecessary interlibrary loan request and so forth is being created. So there's sort of this gap existing out there where, again, we think applying article level intelligence, understanding whether an article is open access or not, can be very useful. And this is just an example. So a library that we worked with here recently just noted that they don't subscribe to the journal, British Journal of Hospital Medicine, which is a hybrid journal. Articles from that journal are indexed in Medline, an important database for them in their medical school. So what happens today is that if somebody clicks on the link resolver from that article record from this journal indexed in Medline, they're being brought to interlibrary loan. But again, because LibKey is operating with this article level intelligence, we have very good and reliable understanding of what articles are open access. When the library integrated LibKey into their databases, when the end user clicks on check full text, rather than, again, the link resolver checking entitlements and so forth, right, that request instead is passed initially to LibKey, where we understand or recognize that article as being open access, irrespective of library entitlements. We just know the article is OA, which means that we can then pass that end user directly to the full text of the article. So again, we really think that today linking has to take into consideration not just simply journal entitlements, does a library subscribe to the journal or not, but we need to know things about the article. And particularly, we need to know with a great degree of reliability whether or not an article is open access, and then of course have accurate linking to that full text. And that really, again, is kind of part of the core mission that we've had in developing LibKey here the last couple of years. So the results for end users here, a little bit of a hyperbole in this photograph here, is that libraries are effectively being able to expand out their collections. Even though you may not subscribe to a journal, with article level intelligence, you can still link out to the OA content. Again, even if that journal is not in your entitlements, as LibKey can link to that OA content. Moreover, you're increasingly being able to meet user expectations. When somebody clicks on that get full text button or whatever you might call it at your library, they expect that they're going to get to full text, not to interlibrary loan, especially if that article is actually available. So we're helping meet end user expectations out there. On the library side, any interlibrary loan request which is unnecessary that we can prevent is just a reduction of staff churn time. And ultimately, it's just happier users across the board. happier librarians not having to deal with unnecessary barriers to access, and just happier users being able to get access to more of the full text content. So that's what we're up to here at Third Iron. LibKey is a very multi-dimensional piece of technology. Like I said, we're taking into consideration a lot of different data points in order to construct out the best link to full text possible. But in this presentation today, I just wanted to talk through some of the things that we're doing with open access. So I hope this has been useful. If you have any questions about what we're doing, be more than happy to take the questions. Feel free to email me directly. You see my email address here on the screen. It's kendall@thirdiron.com. So again, thanks very much for taking the time to view my virtual presentation. I hope the rest of the conference goes well for everybody, and have a good rest of the day.